It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, you beautiful souls. Thank you so much for keeping it locked. How good is it having this guy back, man? Yeah. I am feeling really enthused about our discussion this morning, a vital one. In fact, this entire month is dedicated to mental illness awareness. It is, in fact, that month. And with these problems such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, job stress, pretty much the human condition at the moment, so common, affecting individuals, their families and co-workers, and of course the broader community, it is important to educate the public on the signs and symptoms of these illnesses. And with us this morning is published author of the book, Who Do We Become? John Sinai, and psychologist Clint Maggott. Two friends of the show, guys. Great to have you back. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, gentlemen, it's always good to have you. Obviously here for 3 parts, and I'm definitely so keen to obviously dive into this conversation. For you, Mzansi, as well, don't forget to send your WhatsApps into us because we want to divulge, we want to unpack any of the issues that you are going through right now. But let's get straight into it. Obviously, we've got 2 specialists on the couch this morning. Clint, we've had a great chance to chat to you in previous conversations. John, I haven't had a conversation with you before, so I'm very excited about this. And also to talk about this book. I mean, it's incredible stuff, made yourself vulnerable, but let's talk about the inspiration behind it first. What got you to the point where you felt, I have to put this on paper, I have to share this with the world, I have to express?
Well, it's great to be back, and thank you so much for having me. The book is called Who Do We Become? And I think it's the biggest question we have to ask of ourselves as we go through this transformation.
Yeah.
And this transformation, as any transformation, has 3 stages.
Yeah.
The sad, the strange, and the adventure. And we're all going through this process of sadness, of letting go of identities, familiarity, and sometimes even people, which is really, really tough. And so I wanted to share what I was going through as in this process of sadness, depression, and loneliness that I went through, and give you the tools that I used to get out of it. And the big thing is that once we even get out of the shores of familiarity, we arrive at the land of strangeness. You know, the world is changing at such a pace that we have artificial intelligence and blockchain and all these terms that are coming up that most people don't quite understand, and that's even adding to the anxiousness and frustration. And so I wanted to give people real tools to understand the skills that we need for the future and how to deal with the psychological sort of turmoil that the whole world is going through at the moment.
I love that. And the fact that you have made yourself vulnerable, or at least are telling us that you were vulnerable, that you got to that point of depression, is amazing to me, because I see you as this guy who has all of the tools. But sometimes you've got to go through the fire, and I'm so glad that you've had to put those tools to the test. And we're going to make it practical this morning. This term depression we have spoken about, it's almost a scale of, because there are varying degrees, and everyone, even John, has been affected over these last few years. How would you, within your kind of space, define depression?
I mean, typically, so we would talk about symptoms, right? So we would look at kind of a loss of interest in things. So people just stop enjoying things they would normally have motivation for. They just don't have that anymore. And then there's also the sadness and kind of depressed mood that we would see. But typically, people have a period of confusion. Things stop being meaningful. The kind of things that normally worked for them no longer work. There's kind of a crashing internally. And they find it harder to go on. And so often people are kind of struggling with that and just trying to cope. And usually people then withdraw. So they withdraw from things that they would normally enjoy, the people that they would normally connect with, and then even with work. And their functioning slowly deteriorates.
I like how you're mentioning that, because it kind of weighs into my next question, actually. You're talking about withdrawing, especially that moment where everything kind of just almost seems to just implode and we struggle. We don't know how to deal with it because we're not necessarily equipped with the right tools, and we somehow shy away from asking for help. Now, John, in your book, you've gotten very personal. You've gotten very intimate with some of these emotions that a lot of us as humans shy away from, or
especially
possibly, I mean, we're possibly built up in this world of like, eat concrete, get on with it, and we don't know how to necessarily deal or express with that emotion. How was that for you, going through that and then still trying to express yourself? It must be quite a difficult thing, right?
Very difficult, but I had the tools that I started to practice, and even with the tools, I was going through the process of having to actually feel the emotions.
Okay. It wasn't just theory this time.
Sorry?
It wasn't just theory this time.
No,
This is the
it
real
was
deal.
actually, and even in the book I write, everything that I'd prepared for over my whole life saw me come short over this period of time, you know? And I've been doing this sort of self-work for 15 years or so, and I just wasn't prepared. And I don't think anybody was, really. But I think what we have to realize is that our brain is a function of bringing up memories all the time. And if we continuously trigger these memories, we have a familiar past and a predictable future. And so the thing to do really is to meditate and get into a space of stillness and to rehearse what sort of emotions you want to bring up for the rest of the day. And I do this on a continuous process. So if you think of a sports star that's always always rehearsing, winning that gold medal. What are we doing in our lives to rehearse new emotions and new reactions to the world? And so it's a process that we have to take on to actually build the muscle of preparation and responsibility to how we actually affect the world around us.
I like it. It's like a little fight camp before the main bout, as opposed to the training that happens throughout your throughout your life. I love the fact that we are honing in on the vulnerability, but even as I say the word, I feel myself recoiling and withdrawing. Why do we? And I know it's a masculine thing, yes, but it seems like a South African thing where we've got very high rates of depression, and a lot of it goes undiagnosed because people just don't want to ask for help. Why do we not take that step, that one step that would seem like the most logical step? I need help, ask for help, but we won't do it. Why?
I think often it's the way we kind of understand depression. So we think about depression as something that's, I mean, it's true, it's happening to that person, but it's often kind of defined internally, right? Whereas actually it's often the environment as well. So you can be practicing all that you kind of do. You're somebody that, you know, goes to gym, gets up, does what you need to do, but still the circumstances around you could change. You know, the environment, the things that we were in could change, as we saw over this past couple of years,
can
right?
change, yeah.
And then, you know, what worked before doesn't work any longer. And so it's important for people to kind of recognize that, you know, if you are depressed, it's not a personal failing. And so often people kind of go into shame thinking, it's me, I'm doing something wrong, I'm not getting it right. And that's true. There's stuff you could obviously do differently and things that you may need to. But it's also important to take into account your context and your environment. And so it's, you know, the kind of interplay between those two. And so that's important. People really shouldn't think about, I'm depressed, that's my personal failing. Typically, we'll see things have changed the environment, either currently or even in their past that's coming up.
Oh, I love this conversation. I love how we're drawing analogies that seem to be very practical to me right now. But don't worry, the conversation is going to continue. Mzansi, absolutely loving what we've already touched on. But for you at home, we've also got an incredible opportunity for you to win one of 2 copies of the latest book, Who Do We Become? And it's all that you have to want to get if you want to get involved in this great conversation, if you want to resonate with something that's so important right now. And what you want to do is answer the following questions. So what are you most proud of? And what are you most proud of in terms of what you've achieved in the last 2 years? That's all you have to do. Let us know the answer to that, and you could be one of the winners winning one of 2 copies of this incredible book, Who Do We Become? But we'll talk about it in just a bit. We were talking about training the mind and preparing for certain situations in life, and here's something that can help you with exactly that. Let's get our training on.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yes, Mzansi, welcome back, your Feel Good Breakfast Show, and let us continue with all the magic and this incredible conversation that we've been having on mental health. Now, mental health problems can be the result of complex interplay between biological, psychological, as well as social and environmental factors. So we've got the author of the book, Who Do We Become? It's John Sarnai, as well as psychologist Clint Maggot, and they're still with us this morning unpacking all the incredible but yet pertinent subjects related to depression and everything else around it. And don't forget, we do also have the WhatsApp line open for you right now, so send through any suggestions or any stories that you have on how you maybe overcame your depression, because we'd absolutely love to hear it.
Yeah, please keep the conversation going, and this is a safe place. I think we know that now. John, you talk about the uncertainty of the last years. That's the understatement of the century. This has been the most, I think the whole world just went through this gateway and then ended up in another reality. And I think there is not a person on any level of life who hasn't dealt with that uncertainty. How did you do that? You talk about the tools. What were those tools that you used to bring yourself through that phase?
I think importantly to understand that many of us are addicted to certainty. And what we need to do is actually unhinge ourselves from the need to always know. And in fact, our brains are always looking to find certainty in everything that we do and anchor ourselves. And we have to realize that there are so many domino effects happening, from everything from the patriarchy falling apart to the dollar not being what it used to be, political situations that we don't trust anymore, education not being what it is anymore. All of these things are starting to topple. And so we have to realize that if we can't predict the future and if we can't be certain about something, the only thing we can manage is our behaviors. And so the behavior that we need to adopt is adaptability and agility. And the understanding of that is all about unlearning to relearn. And the unlearning is the real tough part here. And what gets people caught up in depressions is the fact that they aren't able to unlearn old trauma and old experiences. And so the whole process for me was, how do I unlearn and heal old trauma? And that became the practice and the question that I asked about myself.
Interesting. And I mean, it's easier said than done. And maybe, Clint, I can ask you this because we all have these various systems. Some of us don't know what our system is. Some of us haven't learned it, so it's just coping or dealing. But when it comes to certain mental illnesses, there's certain people, individuals that kind of tend to self-inflict or self-harm. Like, come on, why didn't you do that? Or maybe it even gets to that physical point of view. Why is that a response to the situation that we're dealing with? Why do we not look elsewhere? Or is it a matter of like, I'm looking within, clearly this is the problem and there's nothing else I can control in the situation? But why is it so often that we resort to this physical harm and self-harm?
I mean, so it's important to kind of note that often people who are self-harming are kind of trying in some ways. It does give you a weird like ability to kind of emotionally regulate.
Fight or flight,
So
I
they
suppose,
kind
in a
of
way.
actually, through that process, sometimes actually regulate their own emotions. We think about depression as sadness.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of aggression to depression. There's a frustration that comes with it, right? So things are not working. I can't get it right. I'm trying, but it's not working. So that frustration often builds. And again, you're trying to hide it. You're trying not to show people that this is going on. And so where does it go? It often then becomes self-inflicted. And so people sometimes do that either through kind of recklessness, you know, spending or substance abuse, et cetera, and then sometimes even direct physical harm. Through things like, like cutting or something like that. So it becomes quite intense, obviously. And these are ways that sometimes people cope. But the most common one is really how we talk to ourselves in our head, right?
Yeah.
So our self-talk becomes very critical. And we find that people kind of like whoop themselves in the head if they're not getting it right.
Yeah.
We don't encourage ourselves. We don't respond to ourselves with kindness. We wouldn't do that to our friends and family. But to ourselves, we're pretty hard on ourselves.
And then you end up dragging your friends and family along that crazy roller coaster ride as well. We put it to you guys we opened the line for you to weigh in with your insights, and we have a voice note now from Mbali. Let's hear what they had to say.
Good morning, Expresso team. This is Mbali. I am a 23-year-old who suffers from ADHD. I've had it since birth. I had severe depression while in primary school. I was being bullied to an extent that I had suicidal thoughts in the past. So now I am able to speak out, and I have been getting the help I need. I want you to all know that you are never alone, and there's always a way out. Love you guys.
Oh, love you for saying that, Mbali. John, how good does that make you feel? 23 years old. She's been through that fire that we talk about, but she sounds like she's got the tools. But that resonance of there is help. There is
Well,
help.
I think the thing for us to realize is that asking for help is a very courageous thing to do. And she sounds like she asked for help and got help.
Yeah.
And she's now on the other side of it. And so for us to be asking for help, there's so much help online. For you just to look, even if you don't engage with another human, watch YouTube, watch something that gives you the insights. There's so many books being written about it. So there's a lot of tools out there. And I think the thing with depression is to get you even out of the loop to go and seek for that help is a tough thing. Because we sometimes become addicted to our depression.
Yeah.
We want that. And we want
wallow
people
in
to
it,
pity with us. And we want people to join us on that low vibration. And really it's about clicking ourselves out of it and seeking that help that really opens up the gateway to get to the other side of it, just like Mbali did. So congratulations, Mbali. That's fantastic to hear.
Absolutely love that. We've got another voice note coming through. You know this one. It is from Knox, and hopefully some good tips, but let's find out.
Good morning, Expresso show. My name is Nokolo Kokeni, and I've also dealt with depression. And what I did to help me go through it was to actually talk to different people about my problem. Some people I didn't even know. I would speak to people on the taxi, on my way home or my way to work.
Oh, looks like we might have lost the end of that there. But Clint, maybe I can ask you on that note, from a psychological point of view, is it a good idea to chat to others? I mean, sometimes we're so afraid to chat to the professional. We don't want to necessarily be diagnosed initially and say, okay, well, you've got this now, now you want to deal with it. Maybe we're trying to slowly transition into that reality. Sure. Does it help speaking to others? And should we be careful in certain instances in terms of who we speak to in that regard?
I think it's typically good to kind of speak out, right? So as John was saying, you actually need to reach out and ask for help. As soon as it doesn't matter who, what we know is that we often judge ourselves, kind of what's happening internally on what we see happening with others externally.
Yeah.
So we don't actually know what's going on in someone's life or in someone's head, but we kind of think everybody else is doing fine, I'm alone in this, you know. And that's obviously not the case. So when people talk to each other, we often kind of hear that people are really going through stuff. I think it's important sometimes, though, you know, you do need to sometimes reach out to a professional. You do need to sometimes go to somebody that actually kind of is able to help you, even if it's a GP, or there's lots of you know, telephone hotlines, Lifeline is available, SADAG, etc., etc. So it is important to reach out, and there always is help out there. Yeah.
And I'll reiterate, SADAG have helped thousands of people back from the brink, the darkest moments in their life. I think the bottom line is we are all being affected in some way or another, and we are here today to talk to you. So please keep those voice notes coming. Let us know how you're feeling and what you have done, those tools that you've relied on to get yourself out of depression. We're going to continue the discussion in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, your Feel Good Breakfast Show. And what a show it's been already. This morning we are having an incredible conversation with two gentlemen. Number one is the author of the book, Who Do We Become? It's John Sinai, as well as psychologist Clint Maggot in the building. We're still discussing, still unpacking and diving deep into the conversation about mental health as well as depression and how we can go all the way into the world of adventure. But we are talking about so much right now, and you are getting a lot of voice notes in. G, how's it coming on your side?
Yeah,
Got
man.
a couple
So
in?
please keep them coming. 0634088863 is our WhatsApp line. Drop us a voice note, just like Maura Lees, who weighed in the conversation. It's here.
Myself looking at people and wonder how they can be so happy, and I just can't be happy in my circumstances in my whole life.
All right, Clint, I think you were chatting about this quite pertinently earlier, where, I mean, we look around and we see people all with smiles on their faces, and I'm sure when you're feeling that type of way, you wonder...
on Instagram.
Yeah, and Instagram kind of highlights that. I mean, you get forced to see all this happiness and all the perfection. We don't see any of the issues, and you almost think to yourself, is it normal what I'm going through? Why am I not like this? That obviously then exacerbates that feeling and makes it kind of worse. What's going on there? Why is that so pertinent? And why should we maybe steer away from comparing ourselves to others in that situation?
Yeah, I think it's important not to compare yourself to others, obviously, as far as possible. I think people should give TikTok a try, maybe, rather than Instagram. I think it's also, like, I think what's useful is, like, people, there are forums online. You know, I think social media definitely has this comparison component, which is really bad.
Yeah.
But I think there are forms of online kind of social media and ways of connecting with people, and forums and groups that have formed online. Real communities that people wouldn't have had access to before, that they're able to access now because of the internet, and so people should really do that. I was just thinking about what the voice note was saying. I mean, she sounds like she's in a really desperate place.
Yeah.
And she should definitely kind of reach out for help and kind of chat to somebody about that.
And everyone is going through something. They might be externally
Yes.
putting an image out into the world, but I can guarantee you everyone has experienced something. And we've got another voice note coming through from Graydon. Let's take a listen.
Hi, good morning. My name is Graydon. I did suffer from depression about 3 years ago. My wife passed away. It was 15 years in marriage, and it was a big loss for me. And it was hard to get on my feet again. But we thank God that by His grace, He brought me through. And today I am an overcomer, and I'm stronger than before. God bless you all. Amen.
Oh, thank you so much, Graydon, and our sincerest condolences. You know, we can talk about this all we want until something happens in your life that just rips it all apart. It's one thing of us collectively going through what we've gone through with COVID, and I remember that, thinking to myself, the loss doesn't equal, you know, the danger doesn't equal the loss. We're losing everything, lost career, lost money, and then I interviewed someone who lost both parents and their partner to COVID.
Yeah.
Perspective, exactly. How do we deal with those situations, and can it make us stronger once we come through that?
Well, you know, I share a term called mourning courageously in the book, and it's really about us not avoiding the sadness. And I think many times what we do is we try not to feel sad at all at any time. And what happens when we ignore an emotion, it lingers and waits for us and waits for us and waits for us, and then grabs us. And because we haven't we've avoided it for so long, there's so much of it that has to actually be felt.
Yeah.
And so I think mourning courageously is about how do you courageously go into a situation and mourn it deeply. Like really sob. Take the time to sob and sob and sob it out. Because once you've sobbed it out, it's gone. And so yes, of course, there's ways to deal with these things. But for me, what I've always done, is I've always taken on the gift of that mourning so that I can actually heal other aspects of my life that I didn't get to heal through the process of sobbing for that one specific thing. And the gentleman that just spoke, I would imagine he healed other aspects of his life, missing his wife and sobbing about that, you know. So there's a lot to gain from courageously mourning the loss of anything in our lives, you know, and coming out of it with post-traumatic growth. Because only you get the growth after the post-traumatic sort of leveling up after you've gone through that.
I'd like to just weigh in on that, what you've just said, and maybe just follow up with that from Clint, if you could weigh on the following, because it seems to me like what you're bringing up is what a lot of people maybe resonate with, and especially that threshold where you know what you need to potentially go through, but you're not ready to do it. I know I need to deal with this pain. I know I need to deal with the mourning of someone that I've lost, but I'm not ready to do it. I don't know if I can deal. That fear of crossing that bridge, crossing the threshold to say, okay, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to tackle it. Sometimes we don't think we have the strength to do that. Sometimes we don't know if we're going to get through that and have that ability. How do you convince someone? How do you encourage someone to say,
push them over the edge?
You know what? It's all good. Like, it just take one little step. It's not that overwhelming. How do you tell someone that's sitting there petrified of just taking that little step when you know that it's going to bring them that healing, when it's going to bring them that growth? Clint, maybe you can weigh on this. You've dealt with so many people that have possibly gone through this, that are going through it right now, and I think all of us resonate with that. That's scary. That's intimidating. That's overwhelming. How do we get over that line?
Yeah, it's quite scary. So a lot of the time when people are pretending, they're not only doing it for others, they're doing it for themselves. You know, they don't want to engage with what's happening internally. I mean, you know, when I think about what John's saying, like, you know, if you look at like films, stories from long ago or recent, there's always a period where the main character has a dip, right?
Yeah.
They go through something, and only in that state do they really figure something out. It's incredibly scary, typically because it's unknown. And usually what's quite weird is at that point where you're needing to cross that threshold, you might not actually have what you need. You typically don't yet, actually. And it's very much kind of a leap of faith, a kind of a risk to kind of go into that. And in that space, you typically then put things together and kind of figure things out for yourself that you can then come out of it. We have a natural ability to grow. You can see it in kind of kids. They want to develop, right? So it does happen. Often what happens with us is that we get in the way of it. And so sometimes, you know, allowing yourself to kind of engage, mourn, ask questions, go into that space, you will then eventually kind of come out of it. Again, like I say, it's okay to ask for help. You don't need to do it very quickly. I think people sometimes want to do it quickly. That also makes it like more certain, I think, and more controlled. So I'm going to just do this in 10 steps and then I'm sorted. It's often a very uncertain kind of space that you just have to kind of enter into. But you know, you do get out of it, and we've built for it.
Yeah, just take that one first step, make that one right choice. And it is a choice. How you feel is a choice. Even if you have to practice it every day, it is a choice. The way that you two are helping people on the micro and the macro is amazing to me. So much respect for both of you. Look forward to the 5th book coming soon. Hopefully it won't take the 6th book. Wow, hopefully another lockdown won't force you to get through that again. But of course, we are giving you the opportunity to win one of 2 copies of Who Do We Become? And all you have to do is connect with us and let us know what you are most proud of achieving over the last 2 years. And if you haven't gone through that exercise, do it now, because I guarantee you, you will be proud of something that you've overcome. We have faced so many challenges, and you can let us know on our Expresso Facebook or our Twitter pages exactly how you've overcome that over this very difficult period, and we could be awarding you with one of those amazing books. And the competition closes at midday today, so get on it.